Vacations should be synonymous with rest and fun, but for some tourists they turned into true nightmares, wild animal attacks, and deadly encounters in paradise-like destinations. A man makes one mistake and is devoured by lions. A tourist ignores warnings and is attacked by wolves. A cyclist ends up being hunted by a mountain lion. All this and more, you will see now. Safari World in Bangkok is one of Thailand's most famous wildlife parks. With vast open areas, giant enclosures, and trails where visitors can drive their own cars. The park prides itself on offering unique experiences, bringing tourists extremely close to predators such as lions, tigers, and leopards. However, the same freedom that fascinates visitors also hides dangers few would ever imagine. On September 10, 2025, 58-year-old Gian Rangharasamy was carrying out his daily routine as a lion handler. With more than 20 years of experience, he knew every animal, every behavior pattern, and every safety detail of the park. Yet on that day, a series of seemingly small decisions would turn into a tragedy that shocked the world. Gian was accompanied by a group of tourists who had paid to drive their cars through the enclosures. He guided the group, pointing out curiosities about the animals and explaining how to behave around predators. The morning began peacefully, with the sun lighting up the fields and lions resting beneath trees and rocks. It was an idyllic, almost cinematic scene, but the calm concealed the danger approaching. At a certain moment, an object fell near Gian, possibly a tool he used to monitor the animals. Without thinking twice, he crouched down to pick it up, and that was the moment the disaster began. Visitors inside their vehicles watched the scene without understanding its seriousness. To a lion, a crouched and isolated human can appear to be vulnerable prey, especially if partially distracted. A large, imposing male lion silently approached Gian from behind. The attack was instantaneous. Within seconds, the animal leapt onto him, sinking its claws and teeth into his body. Gian's decades of experience with lions were not enough to save him in that moment. Two other lions, attracted by the commotion and the sounds of struggle, joined in, surrounding the victim. The scene was horrifying tourists in shock. Cars stopped, and the brutal sound of claws and teeth tearing into human flesh. Gian fought with all his strength, trying to defend himself with his arms and hands. But the power and speed of the predators were overwhelming. The attack lasted around 15 to 20 minutes. Every second felt like an eternity for those watching. Gian suffered severe injuries to his arms, legs, and torso. The lion that attacked him first had a singular focus: immobilize and dominate him. The force applied was strong enough to break bones and tear muscles, and the two additional lions intensified the violence, biting and dragging the victim across the ground. Some tourists tried honking or shouting, but the animals were not intimidated. Only fellow handler Phanon Sitsang noticed the attack. Did he run into the enclosure and attempt to intervene? At great risk to his own life, Phanon managed to drive the animals away and drag Gian out of the enclosure, but the damage was already deep and irreversible. Gian was immediately taken to the nearest hospital. Doctors and nurses fought desperately to stabilize him, treating massive hemorrhages and multiple injuries. Despite all efforts, he did not survive and passed away a few hours later. The tragedy left family members, co-workers, and tourists in shock. Safari World Bangkok was temporarily closed, and Thai authorities launched a detailed investigation into the incident, analyzing every decision and every action taken at the park, as well as Gian's behavior. One of the first preliminary conclusions indicated that the violation of safety rules was the main factor. Leaving vehicles in predator enclosures was strictly prohibited, a rule that Gian, experienced as he was, ignored in that moment. Gian's attack drew international attention to the risks involved in safaris with captive predators. Animal behavior experts emphasized that no matter how well-trained they may appear, wild animals retain their natural predatory instincts. A human Even an experienced one remains vulnerable. The incident also raised concerns about the safety of both tourists and staff. Safari World Bangkok promised to review all protocols, install additional barriers, reinforce warning signs, and create mandatory training programs. Animal welfare organizations highlighted that incidents like this underscore the importance of respecting wildlife, even in controlled environments, and of not trivializing interactions with predators. Despite the tragedy, Jian's memory remains alive among colleagues and visitors. He was known for his dedication to the animals and his care for tourists, teaching them to respect every creature. His death served as a warning about the limits of human courage in the face of wild nature. The case also led to deep reflections. Even experienced professionals are vulnerable when safety rules are ignored. Marie was a 37-year-old woman passionate about nature and adventure. In June 2024, she decided to spend a few vacation days at the Safari Thoiry Zoo, about 40 kilometers from Paris. This park was not an ordinary zoo. It was an immersive safari where visitors could stay in lodges inside open areas filled with wild animals. There were trails, observation tunnels, and jeeps for guided excursions. Everything was designed to give the sensation of being in the heart of wildlife, but with controlled safety as long as the rules were followed. Marie was accompanied by her young son and a mother, who also loved outdoor experiences. In the previous days, they had explored the safe part of the park, admiring lions, leopards, and bears from a distance inside protected tunnels and observatories. Everything seemed peaceful, and Marie was delighted by the sense of freedom and closeness to nature. She was an active woman. She ran every day, enjoyed outdoor sports and hiking, so she decided to go for a morning run around the lodge, believing it would be safe. The morning sun lit up the American Reserve, a large area of the park designed to simulate North American forests, home to the animals. This area, however, was restricted. Visitors were required to stay inside armored vehicles with guides, and the lodges were monitored by guards 24 hours a day. That morning, Marie woke up early, put on her running outfit, and put in her earphones. She only wanted a quick run to feel the fresh air and the scent of the forest, without imagining she was about to venture into a territory of active predators. She left her son and mother in the lodge, promising to be back soon. With firm steps and a steady pace, she began running, admiring the landscape. At first, everything seemed normal. Wide trails, trees swaying in the breeze, and birds singing. But without realizing it, she entered an area clearly marked as restricted. Small, warning signs were scattered around, but perhaps distracted or overly confident, Marie ignored them. As she continued, the trail narrowed. Marie's heart began to beat faster, not out of fear, but from the natural adrenaline of running. It was then that she noticed a quick movement in the vegetation on her left. For a moment, she thought it might be a deer or some harmless animal, but the sense of alert came quickly. Before she could react, a wolf emerged from the trees and lunged at her ankle, knocking her to the ground. The impact was violent, and Marie screamed, trying to push the animal away with her hands and feet. But it was not just one wolf. Within seconds, two more appeared, an adult male and a younger one, forming an ambush. The male wolf sank its teeth into her back, while the younger one bit her arm with enough force to tear skin and puncture muscles. The first wolf, the one that brought Marie down, dislocated her ankle, making any attempt to escape impossible. The pain was excruciating, but the fear of dying, mixed with disbelief. This can't be happening, Marie thought as she tried to scream for help. The attack was fast, ferocious, and calculated. Each animal seemed to understand its role: immobilize, confuse, and injure. Marie felt her bones tremble and warm, blood running down her body, and the feeling of helplessness began to take over. She tried to protect herself by covering her face, but the sharp claws ripped through her clothes and skin. Fortunately, Marie's screams did not go unnoticed. Zoo guards, who were patrolling the nearby area, heard the noise and ran toward the trail. One grabbed an iron rod, another threw stones at the wolves, managing to scare them off for a few seconds. Exhausted and nearly unconscious, Marie was dragged out of the trail by one of the guards. The scene was chaotic. What should have been a refreshing morning run had turned into a nightmare. Blood covered her legs, arms, and back, and she could barely breathe. First aid was administered on site, but the injuries were severe. Dislocated bones, deep cuts, and puncture wounds. Paramedics arrived quickly and transported her by helicopter to a nearby hospital, initiating emergency treatment. Marie underwent multiple surgeries to reconstruct damaged limbs, but a severe infection developed in the deep wounds. Despite all efforts, Marie did not survive and passed away a few days later. The attack generated huge repercussion in France, raising debates about safety in zoos and interactive safaris. Marie's family filed a lawsuit against the park, claiming failures in signage and supervision. The zoo responded that there were numerous warning signs and physical barriers, but that Marie had consciously ignored the rules. Investigators concluded that the attack could have been avoided with stricter enforcement and with visitors respecting the rules. Experts also emphasized that although wolves in captivity are accustomed to human presence, they retain predatory instincts, and any unexpected behavior from a visitor can be interpreted as a threat or provocation. The desert hills of Whiting Wilderness Park in Orange County, California, have long been a natural refuge for adventurers, cyclists, and wildlife enthusiasts. With winding trails stretching for miles, it's a place where nature reveals itself in its rawest form. Deer, foxes, and occasionally mountain lions silently patrol the terrain. Mountain lions are essential to maintaining the ecosystem's balance, controlling the deer population and keeping the food chain stable. Despite their size and strength, these creatures are generally shy and avoid human contact. Attacks are rare and usually occur only when a person unintentionally provokes a defensive or threatening situation. Mark Reynolds, a 35-year-old competitive cyclist and an employee at a sports marketing company, knew this reality well. He was an experienced adventurer, biking the park's trails since he was young and tackling rugged terrain with confidence. But on January 8, 2004, neither luck nor experience would be enough. Mark decided to explore one of the park's most remote trails alone, carrying only his bike and his determination. He left his friends behind, convinced that his experience was more than enough to handle the difficult terrain. The trail wound through canyons, steep climbs, and dense brush, creating blind spots and making any unexpected encounter with wildlife potentially dangerous. About half an hour into his ride, Mark reached a small incline. As he pedaled hard to reach the top, his chain snapped, dangling from the front gear. He quickly set his bike down and crouched to fix the problem. It was in that moment, alone and vulnerable, that the situation turned deadly. A mountain lion, silent and stealthy, approached the cyclist. Mark didn't notice the predator until it was too late. The mountain lion attacked with speed and precision, knocking him to the ground. Despite his strength and experience, Mark was caught completely off guard. The animal dug its claws into his shoulders and bit his neck and face, causing immediate and severe injuries. The attack was brutal. The creature used all its evolved power to target vital areas, and Mark, alone and lacking any real defense, could not fight back effectively. The lion dragged his body to a nearby bush and began the process of feeding. Meanwhile, other cyclists were approaching the trail, unaware of the unfolding tragedy. Among them was a 20-year-old Marine who loved mountain biking, accompanied by her friend Debbie Nichols. Ann and Debbie began their descent on a trail known as Cactus Hill, unaware of the danger ahead. Leading the group, and spotted a seemingly abandoned bike along the trail. It was Mark's. Curious, she stopped and checked with another passing cyclist, but no one knew where its owner was. Still unaware of the danger and kept riding down the trail, a few minutes later, as she approached a small uphill section, she noticed a strange movement in her peripheral vision. Before she could react, the lion, still alert to human presence, struck and was thrown to the ground, feeling sharp claws tear through her shoulders. The lion grabbed her neck, trying to immobilize her. She screamed desperately, but the animal was incredibly strong. The impact was devastating. Anne's ear was partially torn off, her nose broken, and her cheek badly injured. Debbie arrived moments later, saw her friend being attacked, and reacted instinctively. She grabbed her bike and hurled it at the lion, trying to distract it. Despite her effort, the predator remained relentless, dragging him toward a nearby ravine. Debbie held onto her friend, fighting with everything she had to keep her from being pulled away. The attack continued until other cyclists arrived and began throwing rocks at the animal, finally managing to drive it off, and was gravely injured. The physical and psychological trauma would be severe, but she survived thanks to the quick intervention of friends and strangers. Sadly, Mark wasn't as fortunate. His body was found near the bush where the lion had dragged him. The incident led the California Department of Fish and Game to capture the animal for investigation. During the necropsy, it was confirmed that parts of Mark's body had been consumed by the predator. The case served as a warning for cyclists, runners, and anyone visiting the park's trails. Even animals that generally avoid humans may attack when they feel threatened or detect vulnerability. Mark's crouched position while fixing his bike was likely interpreted by the lion as prey behavior, and, meanwhile, underwent 6 reconstructive surgeries, regaining part of her facial function and continuing her life, now with an even deeper respect for the limits of the wild. She stayed close to Mark's family and became involved with the Mark J. Reynolds Memorial Fund, a charity that provides bicycles to underprivileged children, turning tragedy into a lasting legacy. Mike was 54 years old, and from a very young age, he already knew he wanted to work with animals. But not just any animals. He wanted to work with the most majestic creatures in nature, the big cats. Mike was British, and as much as he loved his country, he knew he could not fulfill his dream there. In 2000, already married, he spoke with his wife and children and told them what he wanted to do. Chrissy, his partner, supported him completely, and the two of them ended up with 2 one-way tickets to South Africa. It was the ideal place to accomplish his goals, a place where he could finally settle, care for, and live side by side with his beloved creatures. In 2003, they moved to a town near Thabazimbi, an iron mining area. In the Limpopo province, they finally opened their lion project. With a large space and all the necessary structure, they hired staff and began a conservation project. Mike could now be close to these creatures from the time they were cubs. He rescued and protected these animals from illegal and legal hunters alike, and he also saved cubs abandoned by their pride. Because Thabazimbi was not a tourist town and therefore didn't have many attractions, Mike saw an opportunity there. In 2000, he and Chris decided to open a wildlife sanctuary to the public. This way, they could show the animals, raise awareness, offer a tourist attraction, and also earn money from it. Guided jeep tours through the large property. It was a fantastic idea. Mike finally felt he was in the right place, doing the right thing. Life there was great. He had good living conditions, worked with what he loved, and was exactly where he wanted to be. In the years that followed, his children grew up near the sanctuary where the animals were cared for, named the Marakele Sanctuary. Just like their father, they loved the lions and had a very different adolescence from most people. They helped care for the animals and learned the importance of preserving nature. Since Mike was extremely passionate about everything he did, whenever a tourist appeared wanting to know more about the guided tours, Mike himself would come out to explain. He would describe how the jeep tours worked and mentioned that he personally took part in many of them. Mike could convince people to take the tour simply through his enthusiasm when speaking about the entire project. The tours were done in a special safari vehicle, surrounded by protective bars for the visitors' safety. These vehicles drove through the property, stopping near the enclosures of the various lions. Tourists could then take photos and videos. In addition, the guides talked about curiosities regarding the place and emphasized the importance of preserving the species. On April 28, 2018, Mike, now 72 years old, still persisted in his mission of caring for his beasts. Even at an advanced age, he maintained a young and energetic spirit. He did what he loved, and that kept him well. It was morning when he walked into his wildlife sanctuary and strolled between the enclosures. He could already see some people talking with employees about the tours. Mike wasted no time introducing himself and explaining how the tours worked. After midday, Mike returned to the property, eager to grab one of the jeeps and personally take some visitors to see the lions. It didn't take long for his 4x4 to fill up and in another employee the tour. As the vehicle moved, everyone looked around in awe. It was clear how much effort and care was put into that place. Mike spoke excitedly about the sanctuary and how much they loved they did. At a certain moment, they stopped very close to one of the enclosures. Inside were some adult lions. One of them, named Shamba, was an old companion of Mike's. He had personally cared for this lion when it was a cub. He knew him and trusted him, even knowing that Shamba was a powerful creature. Mike couldn't help associating the lions he'd raised since cubs with big house cats. With the vehicle so close, Mike smelled something strange. Then he saw Shamba with his back turned, hiding something between his paws. He found it strange and decided to check. His employee warned him not to get too close, but Mike ignored the warnings. He knew exactly what he was getting into. He had created the sanctuary himself, placed those lions there himself, and raised Shamba when he was still small. In his mind, the chances of something happening were practically zero. Mike then entered the enclosure. The people in the vehicle immediately pointed their cell phones at him. As they filmed micro demo enclosure, he walked slowly, but when the lion saw him, it suddenly burst into fury. Mike ran to get out of there, but he wasn't fast enough. The lion leapt onto his back and knocked him down. Then it dragged him by the neck, away from the bars and into a bush. Everything was recorded. The lion bit his neck, jaw, and scratched his back. His employee acted quickly, calling for help and entering the enclosure armed to drive the beast away. He shot the lion, which died right there. The men grabbed Mike and pulled him out. He was bleeding heavily, and his injuries looked severe. Mike was rescued and rushed to the hospital. The people around him, completely shocked, could hardly believe what they had just seen and filmed. He arrived at the hospital with serious injuries and was taken in for surgery. Fortunately, the lion had not struck any vital organs. Mike stayed in recovery. His wife and children arrived immediately, already aware of everything that had happened. Chris couldn't believe Mike had done that. Thankfully, the worst didn't happen, she said. His children were relieved to know he was okay. The footage circulated on the internet and caused widespread panic. But Mike survived. He realized how close he had come to death and admitted he had been reckless. However, he did not blame Shamba. Later, in interviews, he said the mistake had been his and that he would never have allowed the lion to be put down. But it was something inevitable in the moment, and the animal ended up dying. "This time I'll be more careful," he said.